My name is Johanna Hising DiFabio. Everyone calls me Joe, so please feel free to do that. I am the Assistant Dean of the Executive Degree Programs, and I've been here for 15 years. It is an honor and the pleasure of my life to have this important role that I feel makes a huge impact in the world by putting on two programs, the Executive MBA and our Sloan Fellows MBA program, that enables leaders to go out there and make the world a better place. And that is a big driver for me. So with that, I would love for the three of you to introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about why did you choose to think about getting your MBA and why did you choose the Sloan Fellows program? Bindu, can I have you start?
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay, Joe?
Yes.
Awesome. So great to meet you all. I'm Bindu Chanagla, co-founder of a maternal mental health company called Nurture. Why did I choose MIT? Because I've lived on the west side of the US for quite a number of years. I wanted my children to have East Coast experience. Even though there's a similar program, in Stanford, I specifically wanted to come to the East Coast. One of the things that I wanted to invest like at least 1 year to reinvent and reassess myself. I call it a gift to myself after an amazing career. I really wanted this whole exposure for the entire family. When I learned about the Sloan Fellows program at MIT, our motto for the program is "No Fellow Left Behind." That really spoke to me and why I chose MIT. And just looking at the video and seeing, Erin and Karen, hi, um, on we being on the other side of it, it's nostalgic, to just know that we've done this program and now what so many other, cohorts have come after I graduated in 2023. So that's a little bit about me and happy to answer questions about technology and healthcare industry, specifically in terms of how to manage this program, so many inhibitions you may have being a parent, and how we can do this because there's such an amazing support system, including the program office to begin with. Yeah, I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you, Bindu. Karen, will you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, absolutely. I'm so happy to be here again to see you all. And what I can share with everybody that is joining here, MIT was always a dream. I do have a letter when I was 6 years old, when I used to read like a science like magazines, and then all the professors and reference was MIT. And then when I worked in the energy for about 12 and a half years, mainly oil and gas, living in 7 countries. And then I went to just think about the repurpose, the future, and then what is next? How can I impact the world like positively? And then I started to search, and just like many others, like, oh, MIT is so far from me. I can't do that. And then everything changed during the COVID time. I was like, I know that I need to bet in something like high, and I need to go to my dreams. And then I applied for MIT, and then was so smooth, during interview process. I felt like so embraced, since from day one. And I was like, this is it, and then when I got the offer, I was like, yes, I quit my job. And then I joined this loan, and it was a huge transformation. I graduated the MBA certificate, and then I pursued like 2 extra certificate, which was sustainability and digital product management. That was a life change for me, and helped with my career transition, which I really want to go to big companies and generate like big impact within like sustainability space or tech. And I did the transition, hopefully, happily, like last year. And yeah, so, and people, my class 2023, all the support from the MIT team, that was like more than a dream. It was like a real solid foundation to enhance the leadership skills and also transform who I am today. And I can't be like more grateful, for the experience that I gave myself, and then all the interaction and the change that I had through the program. So I really encourage you, if this is something that you're really like in doubt, it's like beyond transformation. It's beyond like, that you can imagine how much you can transform and then explore and extend yourself to a dimension that you can never imagine, through MIT. So that's my share.
Thank you, Karen. Erin, your turn.
All right. Hey everyone, my name is Erin DeWicki, and I am a Sloan Fellow class of 2024. So I come from the healthcare sector. So I was a healthcare provider in orthopedic surgery for 16 years, and came out of COVID feeling really burned out and was starting to be really disillusioned with the U.S. healthcare system and feeling upset, but also like I wanted to help be part of the solution. But I recognized that I needed some leadership training and to kind of refresh my toolbox in order to do that. So I actually started looking at the Harvard Master of Public Policy program, thinking that I want to go into healthcare, like government policy, and maybe work for a think tank or do something like that. And MIT has a really, really good algorithm, shocker. So they started sending me targeted ads somehow, and I started looking into the program. I'm like, wait, this is actually cool. I could like learn how to leverage emerging technology in seeking that way of building a better healthcare system. And I started to get really excited by that. So then I kind of mentioned it to our executive director, the practice I was at. I was like, yeah, I found this cool program at MIT. And he basically kind of gave me this look and made an offhand comment indicating that there was no way in heck I would ever get in. So, don't waste my time. So that made me more determined. So then I got a fire in my belly. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll show you. I'm going to apply to this thing. And got in at a terrible time of my life. So in the middle of a house renovation, with two kids, mortgage, all that fun stuff. But I just decided, you know what? Like the universe pushes you in a certain direction, and sometimes you got to listen and just take the chance. And I did, with the full support of my husband, who was my rock. And my kids still, over a year later, talk about how impactful the experience was for them and how much they miss their MIT family and they want to see their MIT friends. And yeah, to echo Bindo, it was an amazing gift, and I came out transformed as a completely different person, and I have zero regrets. So I ended up forming my own startup. So I am the CEO of a home tick testing kit company called Lime Alert, and we are working on getting that out into the world. But yeah, we really take the slow motto seriously. So we're trying to do good in the world and leave this world a little better than how we found it. So nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Erin. I'm going to stick with you for a second. One of the questions was about like how did the program transform you? So can you talk a little bit about like you came in wanting X, and then what were the paths that actually drove you to be like, actually, I think I'm going to try out this entrepreneurial thing? Because I think it was, I mean, I think that was quite early for you actually in the process.
It was, but I fought it for a long time. So I came in, and two of my classmates joined the summer program called Sandbox Dive. So it was a healthcare entrepreneurship program. And summer core is really hard. So I thought they were insane for signing up for an additional thing. But somehow they talked me into doing it. They said, look, it's mostly during lunch, it's mostly remote. We can all sit together, we can do it. And so I got assigned to Lyme disease because I was a late joiner. And I came up with the idea for my company in the shower the day the pitches were due, no intent on doing this. So I just kind of said it out loud, like, hey, my patients can't afford to come see me, and it would be cool if like we knew the tick that bit them was infected. Wouldn't it be cool if we could test the tick at home? And the problem with saying things like that at MIT out loud are there's a lot of people around who are going to be like, oh, we can figure that out. We should totally do that. So I said it out loud and pitched it. And like an hour and a half later, I had a team with the right people, with the right skills from all across the MIT ecosystem. And we started working on it. We figured it out really quickly. So then when you start the program, you get assigned an executive coach. So I started really working with my executive coach to overcome some of the things that, in retrospect, were really holding me back, like confidence that I should be here, confidence that I should be part of the program, that and they say MIT admissions does not make mistakes, but it took me a long time to internalize that and believe it. So I think the executive coaching that we got was a huge part of my transformation in getting to the point where I said, okay, I can be the CEO of a company. I can have a startup. And kind of letting go of the idea that you need like a paycheck from somebody else to work on somebody else's business to have a fulfilling career. So it's scary, it's hard, but I never would have been able to do it without the help of the Sloan Fellows program.
Thank you. Bindo, you also took a surprising turn into entrepreneurship.
Yes, I sure did. Actually, I took a longer time than Erin to really figure this out, because every time in MIT, something that you'll find is the entrepreneurial ecosystem and energy is insane. It's very, very contagious. So I would go to a pitch event, or I go talk to another friend who came just to be an entrepreneur for this program, right? Or within the MIT ecosystem. And I would be all energized. And then on my way back home in the bus, I'm like, snap out of it. You have kids, you have life, you have bills to pay, like Erin alluded to, and like there's no freaking way I can do it, And then again, I think supportive partners are so critical in this journey. I have an amazing partner who's my best friend, and he said, why are you finding reasons to say no? How will you change the way you think if you said why not and say yes to the opportunity? So almost 2.5 years on this side of it, zero regrets, zero regrets that I tried, because I evolved as a person and as a leader, and the founder muscle is now really well cooked, that no matter what happens in life, I look at problems differently. You hear leaders say, hey, if you have a problem, don't whine about it, come up with a solution. That's like, if you've been in leadership roles, you know that you don't want to put like monkeys on your shoulder to somebody else's shoulder, right? You already are thinking of solution-oriented way, but then as a founder, not only are you thinking of one little, problem, it's all about the bigger picture. Where do we go from here? How do you establish something from ground up? Obviously, I was passionate about women having gaps in care and dealing with postpartum depression. And it's a homogeneous depression that could be identified with pre-pregnancy factors. And how do we not react to the solution, be proactive, right? So it's, I guess being a female founder, trying to solve female health problem, it's really very hard thing to, get like, first of all, when you're meeting men, half the time you have to really explain the problem that you're solving, and then figure out how do we, how can someone invest in it? And healthcare is very complicated in the US, but long story short, I've learned so much, and I'm so grateful that I've had this experience. I'm a different leader because of my entrepreneurial experience. And I came out of it learning on how to self-advocate for myself in so many different scenarios that you're put into, and a lot of self-assessment in terms of where do we go from here and how do we look at problems differently. So I'm grateful for the journey. I think something that we often talk about is an entrepreneurial journey. You feel the lows of the lows and the highs of the highs all the time, and how do you tackle it? And you're emotionally charged in both good and bad ways, but then trying to find, the groove, and how do you pick it up and go to that next step. So if somebody's wanting to incubate their idea and see where you want to take it, MIT is the place to do on this planet.
Thank you, Bindu. Erin, I saw you nodding along on some of those entrepreneurial comments. Karen, I feel like you had a pretty strong plan coming in. You want to talk about your journey a little bit?
Oh yeah, I can talk about this. So I had, honestly, in the beginning I was, like through MIT and the core, and then talking to friends, the leadership, like or in the summer, or the essential to kind of say like, hey, why don't you wake up that thing that was always inside you? I was passionate about like space industry, and then I started to explore that. I didn't end up like my career journey being in the space, but I'm still like mirroring this, like that's the North Star to go. And that really helped me to dive deeper and then explore like not only sustainability, that's the core that I want to bring, shifting from oil and gas, imagine that, right? And then going to clean tech, and then having that mindset was also the digital product development. So the journey, like it was like something that I had a North Star, But MIT just presented me so many other possibilities that I really said, like, you know what, I'm gonna take a chance. And it was really transformative because during especially like the spring, I took a class that called Design and Development. And then another passion that I had was fashion. I like follow like runaways and things like this, like since like when I was super young. And then it was like during the product design and development, I had a chance to work in a project with Hermes Paris. And that was a really like life-changing for me because it was like, how come a chemical engineer, oil and gas can really be creative enough to design and develop a product for Hermes, like Rio Hermes team in Paris. And we present a prototype with so many like other like amazing from PhD, MIT, like high technology stuff. And then we designed a luggage. It was like so amazing with 95% more sustainable than the original one. And a beautiful product, beautiful everything. And that really like, I can do anything, like, you know, and I did like for fashion. And then that really changed like my, not only confidence, like to really think outside the box. I had the North Star. I mirrored the space, and I think I got that somehow, you know, and that's the journey that I'm at. I work today for Amazon. Amazon, it's a big, big company, but like every single team work as a small startup. It's very different culture if you work for Amazon, you know. And then that really helped me, like, you know, through that class and through the journey that I had. I didn't go to the entrepreneurship, but it's kind of like a really good exercise, you know, going through MIT and having that class. Entrepreneurship strategy also gave me that shape to be where I'm at today. So this is what I can share.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I love how you highlighted some of the action learning projects that you got involved with. MIT is very much about mind and hand. It is our motto. I know it was mentioned in the video for those of you who caught it. I highly encourage our fellows to really think about either taking an action learning course or doing these entrepreneurial endeavors like been doing Erin, because it really puts what they're learning into practice. Not to mention, especially for those who are looking to pivot, which a lot of our students are doing, it provides them with some real hands-on examples that they then can talk about in their interviews that are relevant to their career shift. Karen, did you want to say something?
No, I just said like just give a very solid foundation
Yeah.
to shift, you know, the mindset, and yeah, that's the exact right place.
Great. I want to shift a little bit. There are a lot of questions about admissions, as we would expect in these kinds of webinars. Can you all give your takes on like how do you make your application stand out? And especially as you're thinking about pivot, do you talk about that in your application? Like how do you position that? And I'll give my 2 cents at the end too. Anyone want to jump in?
I can go. You know, I was one of those people who didn't speak to a single soul who went to MIT or at MIT before I applied. We have an interesting process in our family. My husband and I usually think of pros and cons of certain steps and then do our own research and then jump into it. So that's exactly what I did. When people now reach out to me, hey, how do I prepare my objectives, or how do I present my application in an appealing way? I first of all, kudos that you actually already know the nuances of networking, which I had no clue before I came to MIT. So I say, everybody that reaches out to me, I say, good job. You're already ahead of me when I went on this journey. The way I did it is I really had to sit down and figure out what is my objective in going to places like MIT and trying to spend 1 year, one precious year at the phase of lives we are in. Is this place gonna meet my objectives? Figuring out what your objectives are. When I hear questions about, oh, after this program with the pivots that you want to make, are you going to get a job that you want? My answer to that question is always it depends, your typical MBA answer, because it's all about networking, knowing the right people, especially in the current job market, ensuring that your why is solid enough and you know what you're going to offer to a place that you go to. So yeah, I think I was very clear with that and my objectives is all about, I think one of the questions that Joe asked is, why I felt like I had to go to a place like MIT is that I felt in my career I was leading this huge teams of engineers and analysts, running the operations and technology for a very amazing integrated payer provider system in the US. Life was great. And why I wanted to do this, I felt like there will be a glass ceiling that I will hit, that I wanted my brand to be enhanced with a place like MIT. Like now I have seen doors open when I use my MIT.edu email. Like people respond to me, or when I reach out on LinkedIn, people are curious on my journey, what I did, and what I want to do next. So I guess in a nutshell, clarity with your objectives and be yourself. I know it's very cliche. People want to somehow add something that you're not. Admissions will see through that. So truly be yourself in terms of, this is what I did, this is my goal. Will MIT help you achieve that? At the end of the day, especially our program that talks about no fellow left behind, that is so, so, so true. If you come in with an attitude of all me or none, you're not going to go anywhere. As a leader, that's not the attitude anybody should have, right? So it's all about leaders eat last. So how do you, as a person and as a leader in your career, is going to offer something for MIT's cohort? That is the most important thing, from what will MIT offer or what this cohort offers, but it's also about what are you going to offer to this cohort? I think that rang true into my entire process. I met two of my cohort buddies at MIT Sloan for the first time. Those are the MIT people I've ever met first. So my journey is a little unique in terms of having talked to anybody, because I was very clear in my head on what I wanted to achieve in my life.
I'm happy to pull on that from a different viewpoint. So I was not clear at all. And I was very clear about how not clear I was in my application. So I basically said, this is what I'm doing. I know I want to help enact change and make this better, but I don't actually know how to do that. And I recognize that I need additional skills and I need help figuring out what my leadership signature needs to look like. I come from a very male dominated industry, and was feeling like when I was going into these meetings that my voice wasn't being heard, and I was being frustrated by that. So I realized I needed leadership training to get me there too. So I really talked about where I felt I was failing in my efforts to help enact change and be part of the solution, and how I thought MIT could help get me there. And also just having, when you've been siloed in one really narrow industry for your whole career, how having that cohort experience and that multidisciplinary approach and that cross-pollination of ideas in countries was going to help me find solutions, that things that work in other countries that we haven't implemented in ours. Because Lord knows we can get some advice from other countries on healthcare here. So I was just really, really clear about where I felt like I was lacking, where I felt like the program could help me get there. And essentially saying, if I'm admitted, I promise to not waste this opportunity and try and give it back anytime I can. This is why I'm on this panel. I feel incredibly grateful for the panel, and Joe knows she can always ask me for help. I will help in any way I can, always. And yeah, be authentic and be willing to pay it forward, and that'll shine through in your application.
Karen, do you want to add anything about your admissions journey?
Yeah, a little bit was similar than Ari in the part of like working. My whole career previously was a very silo, getting like very silent, deep vertical silo, which I really want to get out of that and not being known only for that expertise. And so like, what if doesn't exist in 5 years from now? So those are the things. And then so like MIT was always a dream. So that was the North Star. And then a clear vision that I wanted to be in that silo. Plus, leading like global project, like in 7 countries, all remote locations. It was like, I think I have also a lot to add in terms of emotional intelligence, and then that kind of balance to the team. So that was clear and very strong inside, like inside me. And I knew that in the other hand, I had a lot to learn how to get out of that silo, how to open my mindset, for innovation, and really learn from every single person in class and outside the class. Because one of the examples that I gave, like the product design and development, it's a mixed class where we sit with other like 2 years MBAs and global programs and undergrads. It's a magical like mix where leadership really needs to stand out and then understand the limitations and difference and where in experience everybody's at, and respect that. So that was something that, yeah, I was clear, in the admission. I was really like myself and being honest what I need to develop and what was my goal with the MIT, a part of the passion. So that was the strategy. And yeah, and seeing from a different lens, I'll share this because that was something that I was shocked. Like in the oil and gas, like sometimes I was the only female in the field, right? And then being a cohort with we were like about almost 37% of women. I had to learn how to work with women. Imagine that. Like I had a lot of friends, but that was a great challenge to really listen and see like what their needs, because I wasn't used to that. So that was a really transformation and something that I was wanted to do in person. So that was another thing that was non-negotiable. I didn't want to do virtual, just to experience that in person interaction and then learn and enhance and that leadership skills.
Thank you. I hope what you hear throughout this is that the importance of telling your own story. Whether you have already made the pivot, I see that was one of the questions, or you think you're an unlikely candidate, like maybe Erin did, right? We love diversity in thought coming in. Meaning we know you all have your unique paths coming here. We also recognize you all have your unique paths of where you go next. And if this is a truly transformational experience, that's going to change while you're in the program too. And so I think sort of talking to your authentic story, being open and vulnerable about what's worked and what hasn't, not letting people, maybe even yourself, convince you that this is not the right program for you. Let me tell you, you can do this program. You're worth it. And it can be one of the biggest gifts and biggest inflection points of your life, if used properly. And so I love when people come into the interview or into their application with a lot of passion and sort of a vision for where they want to go. But we also know that what we care more about is sort of what has happened, and that you can give concrete examples of what you've done in your career. And also sort of have a vision of where you want to go with that, and know what gifts you have to give to this community, because it is about giving back to the community a lot, and your classmates, because you are an integral person to create the actual experience. So with that, I actually want to shift a little bit to talk about the community. Can the three of you maybe share like one of your favorite things? There was a question about how do we sort of incorporate family members. Maybe one of you could choose an example of that.
Can I start first? Our class 2023 was really special. I believe that it's the same for others too, but like the experience that I had, like I really like every single soul and how we really like were caring of each other and really seeing through and so respectful in our own personalities. I remember like a time like was around the end of the program that someone gave up on a hike and I wasn't going to the hike, and then I just decided to jump in. And I was like, I remember that I didn't even ask like who's gonna be there. And we were all like going on a trip together, like stay in the same hotel and things like that. And that was how deep was like the community like sense for me, because I didn't need to ask, because I knew that whoever like was there, it was like just be amazing. There was no difference of the feeling of being embraced and being like so good to be together, and regardless like who will be there. So that was like, I think that's the great feeling that I felt. And a part of that, like so many post MIT, post graduation, like any time that I needed on my lows, on my highs, like need that touch base and that community embrace for job searching or after or anytime, anything. That was just like immediately response, like, yeah, how can I help? Like, I'm here for you. Like really like grabbing hands, and then we are doing that together. That is very powerful.
Yeah, I think I saw a comment in the chat just about families coming over and how to integrate. And I think the program does a wonderful job setting that up intentionally right when you start and creating opportunities for the families to engage and feel like they're part of the community as well. So I been to had a similar experience. So we were commuting. So most of our classmates live on campus. They live in a graduate tower called Site 4. And yeah, there's a little FOMO, it's like summer camp for grown-ups and everybody's there and their families are engaging and there's playgrounds and there's impromptu activities. But the cohort was so intentional and we had a cultural committee that set up events. So we had dinners on Sunday where people could sign up to be hosts and every other Sunday, I think it was, there was a spreadsheet that went around and there were 6 slots or 4 slots, depending on how big somebody's apartment was, to host for dinner. So we live on a commuter rail. We're south of the city. So people would hop on the commuter rail and I would pick them up at the train and come and hang out. And our families got to know each other and we did birthdays together and our kids celebrated together. My kids came to the MIT campus once or twice because I wanted them to experience what higher education looked like because that wasn't something I saw growing up. And everybody was just super welcoming. And they got to see all these cool experiences of people doing really, really cool things to change the world. And their mindset changed because they were part of this community. The way they talk about the world is completely different. The way they talk about possibilities is completely different. Like their entire worldview just exploded. It's huge now. And my daughter did a Model UN camp this summer, and just the way she went into that camp was so different. So yeah, it was really cool, even for my whole family.
A minute ago, you obviously I did sound super confident with the objectives. I knew what I wanted out of MIT. At the same time, I had my own inhibitions, right? The fear of, oh, would MIT even look at my application? All those fears are there. It's real. And then once I was given the opportunity, like I said, no fellow left behind. That was really ingrained in our cohort. And I met the most amazing people in different corners of the planet on the campus, because I as I entered the campus, I thought, who would do this? Why would you leave a really nice job, a place that you kind of made at home? Because I moved from India years ago and I thought we were like settling down and then move. Like, who would do this? So I had all those doubts. Those doubts were real. But once I came here, I met 112 plus crazies exactly like me who left similar circumstances, but then yet different, right? We're also different and unique in our own way. So I think that immediately bonds us together, because you hear that once you grow older, friendships are hard because you have certain values and principles and certain way you want to live your life. But some magic happens in the Sloan Fellows cohort that you become friends immediately with like 20 or 30 or 40 plus people. And then at the end of the day, like Karen said, like 100 plus people from different parts of the planet. It's nice in our WhatsApp group. We have like people going to Japan and meeting our Japanese cohort, or somebody's in Brazil meeting our Brazilian friends. So all of that is amazing. To add to what Erin said, Now my children have friends from Israel, Brazil, like different parts of the world where they have their own connections. And our cohort does a good job, and we do like a yearly ski trip. We recently did that. Karen and I were on the mountains all by ourselves without much ski experience. So, but we bond in different ways. So the bonding is real. The community aspect is so amazing. All the feel good factors at your 30s and 40s or even 50s. We had people from all walks of life, from different cultures, different backgrounds, come together. Something that I was amazed from a practicality of it is when I first ventured into entrepreneurship, which is totally accidentally happened. I would want to talk to a finance expert, and I would just shoot a message to our cohort, and like 4 or 5 people say, Bindu, let's jump on a call because somebody has been head of finance or CFO, or talk about someone who has experience in specific aspects of healthcare industry. Like you talk about any industry, any specific area that you want to like brainstorm and consult with someone internally um, in a very psychologically safe environment where you're not judged, you're not, put down because, oh, why is someone asking such simple questions? No, they understand that all of us are so different, and they usually are open to help each other. So we have seen that time and again in our cohort. And interestingly, our lives changed so much in this phase of our lives. And some of us lost our parents, like how we all supported each other in such difficult times, and also celebrating our wins. Most recently, my oldest moved to a boarding high school. I didn't even know there was boarding high schools in the US for the first, like, when I heard about it, I'm like, oh, okay. But she explored it, and she spoke to some of my MIT friends and to learn about the process. And I was able to give her some suggestions through, some of my friends in my cohort. And now she's like exploring and doing so well. So watching our kids' journeys, people getting engaged, people getting married, people dating. So
Yeah.
we have every flavor. So
I think the community piece to me is really important, and we try to enable our students to do whatever they want. We, as a program team, put on community events and often invite the families to be a part of that. In fact, we design community events that are purposefully for the families to bring them all together. But to be honest with you, like the students do so much themselves on organizing, whether it's these ski trips or hikes or whatever it may be. And so they really come together and become quite close. I saw there was a question about, am I going to find people who are like-minded? I think what you're going to find is that like-minded, yes, in terms of very connected to the mission, which is, making this world a better place, and that there is a lot of like-mindedness around. I will say my hope is that you find some that are very like-minded and some that perhaps have a lot of different perspective because of how they grew up and where they grew up and what industry they've been functioning in, so that your mind can expand and think more broadly, which I think we heard a lot from all the examples, whether it's yourself or your kids. Um, so there were some questions about post-career that I thought I would tackle really quickly. I think Aaron, Bindu, and Karen have sort of talked a little bit about their own personal journeys. I'll talk about it a little bit more broadly, and then we'll close out with, and I'll give Aaron, Bindu, and Karen the heads up that we are going to close out with one word to describe. I'm going to do a little bit more broadly, not just the community, but the Sloan Fellows program. So one word and why, and then any advice that you would have for our panelists. I also see a question around the financial side on navigating the career, managing tuition, living expenses, and opportunity cost. I always say my fellows are the bravest and most courageous because they take a bet on themselves and really are making this huge investment. And I will say, they are super creative about it. whether it is savings that they've had or whether it is taking out loans or they have partners, all of the above, very creative. There are a few fellowships that we have, also known as scholarships in other places, but that are a small portion that we can help sort of in terms of tuition. And where does it go from in terms of post-career outcomes? You know, it would be nice for me to have some really fancy, beautiful stats around that, but the fact is that our students really come in with such different um, expectations. There are some that are pivoting from a career where they made a ton of money and are really looking to have more of an impact. And so the metrics actually just don't really tell the full story. And it is really what I often say is that you graduate with the MIT brand. And so a lot of doors will open up just because of that. But whether the opportunity becomes real or not is up to you. It's up to your ability to impactfully create a network. And what I mean by that is that it's not transactional, right? You need to create and develop those relationships. You have a career coach, so someone is there to help you through, connect you with a variety of different um, stakeholders in the ecosystem that you're interested in, connect you with alumni who perhaps have made the same transitions as you or in the area that you're interested in, and to help you create the right story that's authentic around what you value you have to bring. All of my students have hired before, right? And so, you know, thinking that you're going to pivot, whether, and what we really encourage our students to do is think about one pivot at a time. You're either pivoting location, so moving from a different country into the US or US to somewhere else, or you're pivoting your industry, or you're pivoting function. We don't recommend, as you would not for anyone that you mentored, uh, do a multi-pivot. That doesn't mean you can't do that over time, but doing that at once comes at some opportunity costs that we're happy to have our career advisors are happy to have conversations with you on. So I would say that those who are really good at being able to tell their story, are clear about where they want to go next, are really utilizing the network in a mutually beneficial way, really end up landing some beautiful opportunities. And I was actually meeting with some alums on campus on Friday, and the piece that we were sort of reminiscing about is that, you know, the Sloan Fellows program, when you can really tell the impact, is 5 to 10 years out. It doesn't mean you don't have sort of a short-term impacts too, but when you're 5 to 10 years out, you can really look back and see how this was a huge inflection point in your life, in your career, as you've gone through the program. And so with that, I would love for the panelists to end this with two things. How would you describe in one word, and what's your piece of advice? Who wants to start?
I can go. So, one word is curious. The reason I use that word is prior to MIT, I was content. I never updated my LinkedIn profile. I was busy having babies, creating a beautiful family. Career was amazing. I felt very content. As amazing that is, staying curious really helped me to take that leap and do both the MIT program and entrepreneurship and become this, improving this founder muscle. Yeah. So, and also at MIT, you have to stay curious because, like Joe said, you could come with your opinions and thought process based on your background, depending on where you grew up, who you were associated with. But then staying curious really will open your mind to better ideas than you may have as a leader. I think that's a very important thing. My piece of advice would be okay to be uncomfortable. It's a very uncomfortable process to leave what you know, especially for international students. I thought moving from west side of the US to east side was also a huge change, but when I saw my international friends, Karen from Brazil, some of my Indian friends and friends from Israel, all like looking at them, I was amazed at what little I did and how much more other people around me did to be part of this program. So be okay with discomfort because that is where growth happens. So thank you for this opportunity, Joe. Anytime that you need us, we're here. Thanks, Rachel and Maddie, for your support. Good luck to everyone.
I can go next. I would say one word, maybe two, that summarizes like living a dream. Being there for me, it's like not living a dream, like a real dream. So the day that I step in, I said like I am living a dream and it's real, like every single day. And the piece of advice I give, it's similar to what Bindu said. It's leverage the be in the uncomfortable zone, and then ask for feedback and be open for feedback, because it's where you grow. You grow. Maybe you're in a stage of your life that you think no, maybe you are the reference, in that field in the world, but a lot of other things to learn, and then open to see different perspective that really gonna stretch you beyond and to maximize what you are. So that would be my piece of advice at MIT, what really helped me or keep growing to today.
Thank you, Karen. Aaron.
All right. My word is re-energizing, because I felt like I was at a point in my career where dissatisfaction was high, wanted to do something, didn't know how. So by coming here and being around so many cool people and so many smart people who are trying to do such great things, there's something infectious about that energy that just makes you want to go out and do big things yourself every single day. So that for me was huge. My advice is kind of to build on Karen and Bindu is the whole discomfort. So my executive coach was like, look, you've been in healthcare your whole career since you're 18 years old. So we're gonna set up an experiment and you're gonna go do an AI and climate hackathon. I'm like, I don't know anything about either one of those things. And I did it and it was phenomenal and I learned so much and I just realized how transferable my skills, my leadership skills were from healthcare to other industries. And that shifted my whole perspective coming through. So, yeah, just be open to trying things that you never thought you would have tried in a million years, even if it doesn't seem directly relevant to the goal you came into the program with, because I think things will lead you in some really interesting directions that you would miss out on if you weren't open to that.